Shalom.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Shalom. So I decided to share this special class with you all. There's two brief portions that I'll be covering today, and I'll try to move through them relatively quickly. One of the more advanced subjects that I'm asked about privately deal with the nature of Leah and Rachel, and the five Chesadim and the five Gevuros. So I figure I'm going to go ahead and because I planned on revealing this privately, I'll share it with you all openly here in this group. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and send in a link here. This is from the Yirah Rabbah. I'm also going to provide a picture here. Now, everything that I'm about to say here that has to deal with these levels, and here's a tikkun for everyone to follow along, are the absolute highest levels regarding the matter. So it's very important because usually when dealing with the Zohar, I'm not revealing the secrets of the exegesis in terms of how to actually apply it, so on and so forth. But in this particular lesson, I'm going to show you all the actual inner levels of it. And it's very important. So everything that I'm about to say, once it's been established, once it's understood, it's very important to never forget this understanding. Okay, so we're in section 42 called the order of the emanation of the female. There are people here with me physically in person, so I'm handing a couple of Zohars out here. 39, here's the tikkun. We're going to follow along there. Okay, so 42, the order of the emanation of the female, 304. In the image of man, the wholeness of male and female began to be prepared. That is Zerainpin, that includes male and female. And afterwards, when the form of man was prepared in his corrections, Zerainpin began to spread from his chest, between his two arms, in the area where his beard hairs hang. Since this area is referred to as Tiferet, this Tiferet spread and prepared two chests, and then took to the back and made the skull of the female, which is Malchus. She is totally concealed from all sides, the hair and the facial continents of the head. These male and female as one were made by Tiferes, and male and female are referred to as man, as is written according to the beauty, Tiferes, of a man, that it may remain in a house. I'm going to unlock these mysteries for you all. So to understand, Zerainpin refers to the lower six spheros, Chesed, Gevura, Tifres, Netzach, Hod, Yisod. Accordingly, the beauty of a man to dwell in a house identifies the sphere of Tiferet as Adam, and Adam is as written Zikar Nukva. It is important to understand these concepts. So when the Torah tells us that Adam means Zikar Nukva, this means that every single place that Adam is mentioned, it only refers to Zikar Nukva. There's two things that are told here. One is that traditionally the females associated with the seventh sphera. And the third sphera, which is Tiferet, hints to this. So what happens on day 3? On day 3 it says, let there be herb, grass, tree. And what happens on day 7, post day 7? Now there was no grass and no herb of the field, for the Lord did not cause it to rain yet, and there was no man to till the ground. So what does this tell us? This tells us that day 7, that the entire story of the garden takes place at a time when there was no grass, no herb of the field.
What day does the grass and herb of the field emerge? The answer is day 3. Therefore, day 7 and day 3 are intimately connected with each other. That is to say, the female and the male. The Zohar is telling us this right now. What is the sod of this level? The sod of this level, or the first sod of this level, before we address exactly what the Zohar is trying to reveal, what I'm about to say is not directly revealed, but should you probe it to its depth, it's insinuated. This is the reason why you have 2 holes in your nostrils. You have 2 holes in your nostrils because there are 2 things that emerge in Tiferet. The answer is male and female. This is when Adam and Eve, the man and the woman, are removed from the garden. They're removed from the garden on day 3. Okay? So what do we get from here? Now, we have to understand is that if you pay attention to the diagram that I've provided, there are the 2 Partufim, Leah and Rachel. Leah and Rachel are used in advanced Lurianic Kabbalah. This is how we understand it. The Arizal did not just make these things up out of thin air. One of the major problems with studying the Lurianic Kabbalah is that everything the Arizal taught is only from the Zohar and from the Zohar alone. Every minute detail came specifically from the Zohar. Therefore, without the study of the Zohar, the Lurianic Kabbalah is completely nonsensical. And people, unfortunately, who study the Lurianic Kabbalah with outside of the Zohar are some of the most astray individuals in the world. It is better to know nothing and be filled by the proper understanding than to assume to know something and obtain no understanding. So what we understand from this is that Tiferet, at the time of its correction, on the back side of the sphere of Tiferet, the skull of the female was created. This refers to the Keter of the Partufim of Rachel. The Keter of the Partufim of Rachel. So when you look at the diagram, you're going to see that there's the sphere of Tiferet in Zorainpin, and at the back of Tiferet is the Partufim of Rachel. That's what it's describing. So we're going to go ahead. We'll go ahead and hit the next level. When the facial continence of the female head was created, a lock of hair hung in the back of Zorainpin and hung until the head of the female, and her head hairs were roused, all red, consisting of all colors. Why red? The answer is red is because she contains inside of herself all of the gevuros. The gevurot of Zorainpin enter into this Partufim of Rachel, which are going to be actually mentioned in this section. This and this next section, there's 2 little small sections where the Zohar uses the term 5 Hasidim and 5 Gevuros. They are only used in these 2 passages. In the entire Zohar, the 5 Hasidim and 5 Gevuros are only mentioned directly in these 2 passages. This is very critical because the understanding of the 5 Hasidim and 5 Gevuros are a very centralized understanding into everything in the Lurianic corpus. In order for you to understand anything about what the Arizal is actually talking about in any of his writings, when he talks about the spreading of the Hasidim and Gevuros, which are mentioned incessantly, you must understand where this information is derived from. It is here. It is here. So it is red because the Gevuros spread in the Partufim of Rachel. This is why her hair is red. This is what is written in the hair of your head is like purple. Now, purple refers to Bina, because the Partufim of Leah, which is above it, and emerges from the Da'as. This happens because the Netzach Hod Yisod of the Partufim called Ima, which is represented by the color purple. Again, this is also another reason why it's very important to not alter anything inside of Likutei. Do not infuse your own understanding in anything in Likutei, because to add to or change or think you can improve on anything in there is to diminish it. And to diminish it is to remove yourself from the true understanding permanently. Because now when you get to this section and the Zohar says purple, if you've changed Ima to some other color configuration that you've conceived for your own understanding, you are immediately locked out. This is the hallmark of being unworthy of receiving the true mysteries of the Zohar. Nothing must be changed. It must be exactly as it is. Do not alter it. Purple is Bina. Netzach Hod Yisod formed the Chokmah Bina Da'as of Zorainpin. When that Da'as is formed, Leah emerges. And so it says here the color of the hair is purple. This refers to the Partufim of Leah that emerges from Da'as. What is purple? It is colors blended inclusively within hues. This is very important understanding about this color that's infused with hues. One, we can get into it because it has to deal with Abba and Ima being infused inside of each other, the white and the red being infused inside of each other. So 306, we have learned that Tiferet spreads from the center of the heart. Now, Tiferet is the secret of the heart, as has been made known to you. Tiferet is the secret of the heart. It spreads from the heart. From the cavity of the chest permeates and crosses to the other side, meaning the back. Because the backside of Zarainpin, the backside of the heart, is exactly where the head of the female is. That's exactly where the keter of the Partsufim of Rachel is. It is in exactly this location. And it receives the Gevuros. So it says, and fixes the continent of the female to the center. She starts at the center and ends at the center. She starts at the center because the top part of the keter of Rachel is, the height of it is the Tifres of Zarainpin, and her Malchus of Rachel is associated with the Yisod of Zarainpin. Thus, it starts in the center and ends in the center. The height of the Partufim of Rachel is from Tifres to Yisod. Thus, it starts at the center, mainly at the backside of the heart, and it ends at the center, meaning Yisod, which is both of these are in the center. Tifres further expanded, and the intestines of the male were prepared. The intestines are located at Netzach and Hod. In Likute, there's a portion where all of the organs are derived from shattered vessels. That all of the broken vessels form the organs, and thus the organs themselves are not perfected vessels, but rather they're the opposite. In fact, they have this very interesting dichotomy because ultimately it's your organs that are going to kill you. The very fascinating thing about the organs and the secret of the seven kings of Edom, because all of the organs, the primary organs of the body, are located in Zarainpin. That is to say, in the chest. So you want to know where your primary function of organs are. You're going to find your liver, you're going to find your heart, you're going to find your kidneys, you're going to find your intestines, all located in this area. Now, Pinchas takes this another level and tells you that these are actually all the demonic. That the liver, for example, is Samael, and the spleen, for example, is Lilith, and the appendix. So you actually find your organs are actually the Shadam, the demons, the Sita Achra, because they're the kings of Edom. Edom means red. The kings of the red means the kings of the flesh. And what are the kings of the flesh? The answer is the organs. The organs are the kings of the flesh. And so then, therefore, permission is given over to the Sita Achra to do what? Where does your suffering come from? The answer is your organs. So we have learned that 600,000 times 10,000 creatures of compassion are attached to these intestines. This is because Rachel's Partsuf is formed from the Netzach Hod Yisod of Zarainpin. This is a very advanced level, which I'm saying right here, but they are formed from the Netzach Hod Yisod of Zarainpin. To help you guys better understand this concept here of what's being talked about, I'm going to provide another image, and it will exemplify this idea. So give me just a moment. So we can see here, according to the picture that I've provided, that the Netzach Hod Yisod of Zarainpin form the Partsufim of Rachel, and its specificities have been shown there. How each one of her spheros are formed by the Netzach Hod Yisod. That is to say, the intestines. That's what the Zohar is wishing to say here. That's what it's hinting to. So it says they are attached to these intestines. Now, why does it say 600,000 times 10,000? So what is 10,000? So the answer to 10,000 is Chokmah, Abba, because Rachel is formed from what? The Malkut of Abba. Leah is the Malkuth of Bina, which is the grade of 1,000. Rachel is made from the Malkut of Abba. Rachel, it means sheep, means whiteness. This is the grade of 10,000. This is why it's saying that. And why is it saying 600? Because it's referring to Zarainpin, particularly the letter Vav, which can't be pronounced without saying it twice. The first Vav hints to Tiferet. The second Vav hints to Yisod. This is 600 times 10,000. That is to say, the Malkuth of Abba, which is 10,000, emerges from that Vav, an example between Tifreth and Yisod. Now, they are attached to these intestines, and they are referred to as intestinal beings, because they are beings that are developed within inside of the intestines of that supernal man, which are all found in the Parzufim of Rachel. This is what's written of day 5. Let the water swarm. What is day 5? Netzach. But when you understand, let the water swarm with living creatures, this is similar to the intestines, because the intestines, as we see, which are identified by the levels of Netzach and Hod, actually form the spheros of the Parzufim of Rachel. Therefore, my inward parts are moved for him. I will surely have mercy on him, says Hashem. My inward parts are moved. What does it mean, the inward parts? It means the Parzufim of Rachel. It means the aspects of Malchus, the Shekhinah. So 308. We have learned that Tifreth is encompassed in mercy and encompassed in judgment. So Tifreth has two attributes, mercy and judgment. They receive from two sides. Ultimately, we can say that this refers to Chesed and Gevurah, which connect themselves into Tifreth, but another understanding is that it receives from Ima and it receives from Abba. So mercy permeates in the brains of the male, that is Zerah Pin as mentioned above, and crosses and illuminates the other side. That's because the mercy which forms the brains, the aspect that forms the brains, the Netzach, Hod, Yisod, creating the Chokmah, being a Das of Zerah Pin, that's the first level where his brains are. But then it crosses to the other side, which is Leah. Leah is the other side because it emerges outside and is on the other side of Zerah Pin. The word other means backside. And because Leah is connected to the backside of his brains, an example, the backside of Das, it states this. So it states here, and crosses and illuminates the other side, meaning the back of Zerah Pin. It prepares the intestines of the female, because Leah prepares the Parzufim of Rachel, which sits beneath it. And her intestines is to be established by the side of judgment, because Rachel receives inside of it the 5 Gevuros. The 5 Gevuros, as you guys can see in the aforementioned diagram, they're represented by 5 red. They enter inside of the Parzufim of Rachel, whereas Leah receives the 5 aspects of the Chasidim. We have learned that the male, which is Zerah Pin, was prepared on his side, because Zerah Pin is completely male, and the Nukva is female. This explains why the Malkuth of Ima and Abba emerged from the body of Zerah Pin. The reason why they emerged from the body of Zerah Pin is because the Netzach Hod Yisod of Ima comes from the aspect of her own Zerah Pin, which means the aspect of the male within her own aspect. The same thing that happens with the other. However, the aspect of Malchus is not like this. The aspect of Malchus is 100% female, and therefore it cannot stay inside of the body of Zerah Pin. This is why it emerges. So it states, some of them are in the innermost aspects of Zerah Pin, and some of them are on his exterior side. Some of them are compassionate, and some of them are judgmental. Meaning that the Parzufim of Leah receives aspects of Chasidim, and the aspects of Rachel receives aspects of judgment. All of those that are judgmental were attached to the judgments in the back of Zerah Pin, where the female expands. That is to say, because Leah and Rachel emerge from the backside of Das and Tifres respectively, all these judgments enter out, meaning the Gevuros. They join together and spread on her side. This is very important because this is telling us the Chasidim and the Gevuros spread inside of those partzufs. Thus 310 it says, we have learned that 5 types of impropriety were revealed in her from the side of the 5 judgments. Now, this is the Zohar, one of the very few places where the Zohar is going to tell us there are 5 Gevuros, and it's mentioning them right now. 5 judgments were dispersed by 248 paths, as we have learned. Hearing a woman's voice is an impropriety. The sight of a woman's hair is an impropriety. The sight of a woman's thigh is an impropriety. The sight of a woman's hand is an impropriety. The sight of a woman's foot is an impropriety. These are 5. And these 2, hand and foot, our friends did not learn. However, there are 2. These 2 are even more of an impropriety. So we're going to go into one last aspect called a pure covering, where it's going to talk about the nature of the 5 Chasidim and 5 Gevuros. It's the very next section. It's called a pure covering, very short. And hopefully we will be able to expound deeper on these levels and understand what the Zohar says about the Chasidim and Gevuros. So it's called a pure covering. So I sent the link in here, and it starts on 311. So we have learned in the hidden book that the male spread and was fixed in his own formations. The shape of a clean covering was prepared, and it became a clear cubit. The length of that cubit is 248 worlds. So this is hinting about the spreading of the Hasidim. These Hasidim that spread are in the secret of the name Avraham. And because the word cubit is Ema, Aleph Mem He, this is also found in the word Avraham. Avraham's letters can be spelt as Beis Resh, that is to say, Bar or Bare, which means to create. Aleph Mem He, Ema, a cubit. So the word Avraham has an allusion to the creation of a cubit. This is what the Zohar is trying to insinuate about it being 248. 248 is the numerical value of Avraham. It's talking about the spreading of the Chassidim. Everything depends on that opening of a cubit that is called Yod. That Yod obviously refers to Chokmah, the spreading of the Chassidim, which spread out from the Yod. So if you look at the Partsufim called Leah, she receives inside of her the aspects of the Chassidim. These emerge from Yod. That is to say that the origin of the Chassidim come from the Partsufim of Abba, which is the secret of this Yod. As soon as that Yod, which is the opening of the cubit, is revealed, supernal Chesed becomes apparent. Because there are 5 Chassidim that derive itself from the 10 spheros inside of Chokhmah. Right? So the 10 spheros are derived between 5 primary Partsufim. There are Richain Pin to Keter, Abba to Chokhmah, Ima to Bina. The lower 6 are to Zayin Pin respectively, and the Nukva, which is Malchus. And is dependent on the opening of the cubit, but it is not considered chesed until the Yod of the mouth of the cubit becomes uncovered. That means that the Chassidim are not considered Chassidim until they emerge outside of the Partsufim of Abba and enter into the secret of the sphere of Das. The Chassidim and Geviros enter into the sphere of Das. And until the Chassidim and Geviros enter into the secret of Das, it is not considered Chassidim, which means that until the cubit, until that Yod is opened, that is to say, until the lights of Abba go from an internality to an externality, and they emerge from that top portion, they're not considered these Chassidim yet. So, 312, come and see that Avraham was not considered perfect in his chesed up until the Yod of the cubit was revealed. Because here it's identifying that Avraham is in the secret of the spreading of these Chassidim. This is the secret of the letter He that was added to the name Avraham. The reason why the letter He was added to the name of Avraham is because this He, which has a numerical value of 5, hints to the spreading of the Chassidim inside of the Geviros. Inside of the Partsufim of Zayin Pin. So when Zayin Pin was being formulated, which I've discussed about its stages, Ibor, Yenucha, and Gadlus, it receives, in order to go into this level of Yenucha, it has to draw down the Chassidim first. The Chassidim enter before the Geviros. This is an example when a woman gives birth, her water breaks first, then blood. The water is the Chassidim first. So it says, and it was not considered perfect in this chesed up until the Yod of the cubit was revealed. That is the crown of Yisod. As soon as it was uncovered, now the crown of Yisod is because the Netzach code Yisod formed the Chokmah being a Da'as of Zayin Pin. The Da'as of Zayin Pin is formed from Yisod, and this is where the Chassidim enter in the Da'as. This is what is written, walk before me and be perfect. Actually perfect. It is also written, I was also upright before him and have kept myself from iniquity. He asks, what does it mean, the relationship of the beginning of the verse to the conclusion of the verse? He replies, it is telling about whoever uncovers that Yod. That means the concealed Abba. Meaning he reveals the Chokmah in the crown of Yisod. That is to say, he reveals the Chassidim, the 5 Chassidim, that are gathered inside of that Das. And who is carefully guarding himself so as not to give the Yod to another jurisdiction, an example, the other side. The entire purpose of the Chassidim and the Geviros, and the entire purpose of the aspects of Leah and Rachel, are to ultimately act as vessels to prevent the externalities from actually suckling from that supernal light. And they do not have access to those lights. And I can give you guys a practical application as to what this actually means, but I'll do that at the conclusion of this section. So it says, he will be perfect for the world to come, and he will be bound in the bundle of life, meaning that his soul be included in Malchus, that is referred to as the bundle of life, because Malchus is Leah and Rachel, the place where the Chassidim and Gever was spread into. Since the 3 columns are tied into one bundle, What is the other side's jurisdiction? It refers to that which is written and has married the daughter of a strange El. That means Malchus of the other side, which draws Hokmah from above downwards. Therefore, it is written, I was also upright before him, since he is perfect when revealing the Yod. Meaning the aspect of the crown of Yisod that illumines from above downwards. And have kept myself from iniquity, not to adhere to the daughters of the strange Els mentioned above. So here we go. When this cubit gets extended, that's the aspect of the Hasidim. Okay, when these 5 Hasidim, the side of Gevurah is extended from the Gevurot of the left of the female. That is to say, after the spreading of the 5 Hasidim come the 5 Gevurot. It is submerged in a specific area in the female, because the 5 Gevurot are submerged into the Partzufim of Rachel, and the Hasidim are in the Partzufim of Leah, as it was explained. And the whole covering of the female body is marked by nakedness, because nakedness means it's uncovered. In this place, it is considered overall nakedness, which is the area in which to conceal the cubit, referred to as chesed. Because when the Gevurot enter inside of the Partzufim of Rachel becomes exposed, as it were, while Leah becomes concealed, as it were, because Leah is the panimios of the Shekhinah, and Rachel is the chitzniot of the Shekhinah, meaning the externality, as opposed to the internality. In order to mitigate the Gevurah that is comprised of 5 Gevuros, with the 5 Hasidim that comprise 5 Chasadim. So now we see that there are 5 Chasadim and 5 Gevuros. That's exactly what it's talking about, and how they spread into the Partzufim of Leah and the Partzufim of Rachel, as was explained. The five Chasadim enter into the Partzufim of Leah, and the 5 Gevuros enter inside of the Partzufim of Rachel. One gets firmly established in the other, meaning that Rachel becomes firmly established within inside of Leah, and is called man, meaning male and female, which is inclusive of both sides, which means they both enter into the aspect of Zorainpin, because ultimately Leah and Rachel are connected by the sphere of Tiferet. The feet of Leah, an example of Malchus, is connected to Tiferet, while the Keter of Rachel is connected to Tiferet. Therefore, in all the spheros there exists right, left, judgment, and mercy. That is to say, from all of the sides. Now, these are very lofty concepts. These are very lofty, guarded secrets. This is in the Yirah, the most advanced sections of the entire Zohar. And these are the only 2 portions that talk about the Chasadim and Gevuros, both 5 Gevuros and 5 Chasadim. It's very important to understand this portion, because in the Lurianic Kabbalah, when you start to study it, they're going to describe these 5 Chasadim and 5 Gevuros, and they're going to use these terms vehemently over and over and over again. And it's expected that the reader should know these things as if you know your ABCs. But where did he understand this idea from? And the answer is this portion right here, which the Zohar is cryptically hinting to these things. Now, what are the Partzufim of Leah and what are the Partzufim of Rachel in practical reality? So the answer of the Partzufim of Leah is that she emerges from the Malchus of Bina, and she emerges from the Das of Zarinpin. Now, Das of Zarinpin is your lungs. It's your lungs. And when you emerge from the Partzufim of your lungs, what emerges outside of your body is Malchus. An example, Et, which is the secret of Malchus, meaning 22 letters. And this refers to the 22 letters of Bina, which means understanding, or Tevunah. These are the sound of the 22 letters. This is why when you speak, sound emanates from your lungs to the outside of your body, the outside portion of your body. This refers to the Partzufim of Leah in reality. The Partzufim of Leah are the sound of the 22 letters emanating from your lungs outside of your body. Just as Leah emerges on the outside of the Partzufim of Zarinpin in the upper worlds archetypally, so too in this world, which we are a reflection of a branch of that archetypal world, our 22 letters emanate outside of our lungs, which is our da'as, for the explicit purpose of communication to Vana. While Rachel, which stays from the level of the intestines, well, what is the intestines? What's located in the intestines? The answer to that area is the womb. The womb is located in that location. This is why Rachel is associated with the Malchus of Abba. Certain wisdom gives life to its possessor, and it's in the secret of something living. And so what is the living thing? The answer is the 22 letters in its supernal form, meaning the fronts and backs of the spheros and the tree on top of tree formation. That is to say, a baby. And so a baby is located in that exact location. its location is from Vav, meaning right beneath the heart, and to the Yisod. And so that's exactly the location of the baby. And it's formed, as you saw, the Netzach code Yisod, that's the exact location where the baby is formed. So as you see, the Partsufim of Rachel is synonymous with the baby. It's also synonymous with being formed in that exact location. And the more advanced studies and more advanced materials that I've shared privately, I've described about the lights and how those lights from Netzach code Yisod enter into the baby, etc. But this is beyond the scope of this conversation. Nonetheless, the primary idea behind this is to give you guys, in this first portion, a very brief understanding of the Partsufim of Leah and Rachel, because what I am able to reveal in terms of my channel are breadcrumbs. And what I'm able to reveal in the chat are breadcrumbs, but I don't desire for you to eat trash. I don't desire for you to eat trash and scraps like a king who has leftover garbage on his plate and feeds it to his servants because they don't deserve to sit at the king's table and eat delicacies because they don't know how to eat delicacies. I would rather you not eat scraps from a table. But in order for you to actually understand the depths, you must be mature and learned truly in the levels of the Zohar, the really deep levels, which are beyond the scope of simpleton conversations. So the second portion of today's lesson is in the opening of the eyes. So for all of you that are on the phone, there are people here that are with me in person, and the lecture is primarily to them. I give private lessons personally, but you here that are listening in on the conversation have the privilege to access what would otherwise be closed teachings, person to person. So I'm going to go ahead and share with you all inside of the phone call the next portion. As for you here that are in person, I'm going to give you guys the page number. So the page number that we want to turn to is 148, opening of the eyes, and then we'll conclude. Okay, opening of the eyes. Okay, opening of the eyes. All right, let's begin. Let everyone have a moment to open that up. Okay, so we are in the opening of the eyes, 148. Now this is going to draw us an extreme distinction. I get a lot of conversation going on here. What is Hashem? Is Hashem what we think it is? This section of the Zohar is one of the most important and one of the most well guarded. The Yirah Rabbah is very deep. We're talking about book 17 of the Zohar. If you read it without being guided inside of it, you're not going to understand anything. You might as well be reading an alien language. But once you understand what the Yirah Rabbah is saying, it's going to have massive, explosive, shocking implications. You will immediately understand why the Erev Rav do not want you to study it. Meanwhile, the Tanya tells us that this is the tree of life. The Tanya tells us that the Zohar is not only the tree of life, but this is how we leave Geulah. So the people who tell you not to study the Zohar are the same Erev Rav that prolong the exile. Because the Tanya has already laid out that this is how we leave the exile with mercy. So any person who tells you not to read the Zohar is telling you, don't eat from the tree of life, come eat from the tree of death. Come eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't listen to that. Any person who says that is false to the Tanya, false to all the Rebbes, and it should be completely ignored. 100%. So, and there's reasons why they don't want you to read that. The reason why they don't want you to read the Zohar, this portion in the Yirah, is one of the reasons why. Because one, it's going to reveal who the Erev Rav are, who the mixed multitude are, what's actually going on here and how far astray we actually are from the truth. It's pretty terrifying. So the opening of the eyes opens up on 148. And it states, the eyes of the white head. So what is the white head? The eyes of the white head. So for you guys that are inside of the group, I'll provide you guys all with a picture. Bear that in mind there. The author here is going to use the term a Rekind pin. That is not to be understood as a Rekind pin. It's going to say that is Ketha a Rekind pin. That's to be completely ignored. The eyes of the white head, that is called the skull, are different from other eyes. Because this eye, right, is Ein Sof, Or. So what is Ein? Ein is the white of the eye. What is Ein Sof? The color of the eye. What's the Ein Sof Or? The black pupil of the eye. This is the supernal eye. We're talking about the highest head of the ancient Holy One. The true ancient Holy One. There is no membrane to cover and no eyelid over the eye because it never closes. Could you imagine if the Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Or ever closed? Obviously, reality would cease to exist. What is the reason? It is because it is written, behold, he who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Oh, wait a minute. But isn't it written, why sleep you, Hashem? But the one who keeps Israel never sleeps. So what's going on with this stark contradiction? And in fact, that portion about Zerampin sleeping is going to be talked about in this very portion. It is very important to understand this extreme dichotomy between these two figures. Meaning he who keeps Israel above, right? It is written, your eyes are open without a membrane cover. That is to say, Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Or, which are the opening of the eye. And we learn that everything that descends upon us with compassion has no cover on the eye and no eyelid over the eye, all the more so the white head that needs none. The white head is the head of the Atik, the highest head of the Atik, where his skull is that heart spark, and his mind is that restriction. And the illumination of that mind is the endless. Rabbi Shimon remarked to Rabbi Abba. So Shimon is Bina, remarks to Rav Abba Chochma. What is alluding to? He applies him to the fish of the sea that have no eyelids. This is telling us about the primordial Tanin. He's telling us that this is like the eye of a fish. He's likening the highest, most ancient Atik to the eye of a fish of a great sea, because the great sea is the great Simsum. It's the great restriction. And this is likened to that eye. They do not sleep and require no protection over the eyes. There's no eyelid on the eye of a fish. How incredible is this? This is telling us something very powerful about the nature of the upper world. Here, the primordial serpent is seen as an evil thing here in this world, because this world is a reverse opposite of the upper world. But up above, the lower beings are higher. So the most high primordial Tanin are to be found at the highest level. Because mercy flows on them, all the more so the most ancient of all that requires no sentinel, since he is the one that takes care of everything, because he is the only real one. Everything else is just a created, irrelevant thing, meaning that something that requires a sentinel, something that sleeps, something that is not perfect. And all take their sustenance from him because he is the life of all things. The ancient Atik is the life of everything. Everything is only exists according to its power. It exists by its power, etc. He does not sleep. That is what is meant by, behold, he who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. So it says, it is written, behold, the eye of Hashem is upon those who fear him. Kativ hine ayin, yidke vavke el yirev. The eye of Hashem, singular eye, which means one eye. It is written, the eyes of Hashem, they rove to and fro through the whole earth. The eyes are the seven eyes of Hashem. The seven eyes of Hashem, because every plurality refers to seven eyes. So it's making a distinction. Those who have Yirah, Yirev, those who have awe, The upper supernal eye watches over them. But all of these other people, the 7 eyes of Hashem, rove to and fro upon all of them. This is why when you learn about the midot, when you learn about the merkavot, when you learn about the chariots, it's always depicted with the 7 eyes. This is what it means. They ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and what happened? Their eyes were opened. What are those eyes? The 7 eyes. Those 7 eyes cause death. It says, he replies, it is no contradiction. Here one is in Zerayin Pin, and the other one says here is in a Rikain Pin. The Rikain Pin is the beard. The beard is the most external revealed aspect of the Atik. Even though the Zohar is not truly talking about the beard, God forbid it be talking about the beard. It's talking about the beard is the most revealed external aspect. Meaning when we associate the sphere of Keter, we think a Rikain Pin of the 5 partsufs. That's the intention here. It's revealing one thing and concealing 2. There is 1 eye. In spite of all this, there are 2 eyes that turn into 1, which is white within white. The white is inclusive of all that is white. What is white within white? Because the Simsum and the endless itself is white within white. That is to say that the Atik, which flows the emanation of all whiteness, which is the life of all worlds, and everything is contained inside of it, and it is the life of all things, and it is the eye of providence that observes all things, because everything is brought within sight of what? The Simsum. The Simsum is the root of everything. And because the Simsum is the root of everything, everything is within sight of the eye. And there's nothing outside of that supernal watchful eye that sees everything in reality. Because everything inside of reality is within sight of that eye. Thus it is called white within white. The original whiteness illuminates, that is to say, the aim. Ascends and descends, that is to say, because of the Or Yashar, the straight light, which is the image of a man. The Or Yashar is the image of a man, the 10 spheros in the image of a man. This is very standard Lurianic Kabbalah. It descends up and down to look at that which is bounded in a bundle. Bound in a bundle means the restriction, because the Simsum is like being bound in a bundle. Bound in a bundle means wrapped together, meaning brought together, like concentric circles being brought in. We have learned that whiteness struck and lit 3 candles. Whiteness struck means the straight light descended and struck that hard spark. When that hard spark was struck, 7 sparks emerged, and then what does it say? It illuminates 3 candles. What are the first 3 candles that Likutei tells you were lit? Shin, Tet, Nun, which are Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet that form the partsufim of a Rikain Pin. These are the 3 candles that are being talked about here. They are called glory, majesty, and joy. That is to say, the 3 columns. And they all glow in perfect happiness. That is to say, a Rikain Pin. The second whiteness illuminates. It ascends and its light descends. It stamps and produces 3 other lights, which are called Netzach, Chesed, and Tiferes, which glow in perfect happiness. That is to say, that Netzach Hod Yisod. What's the purpose of saying Chesed and Tiferes? It's to say that one spheros is enclosed in another spheros. So Chokmah, Bina, and Da'as enclose themselves in Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet, and Chesed, Gevurah, and Tiferet enclose themselves in Netzach Hod Yisod. That's the understanding. The third whiteness glows and radiates. It exits and covers of the brain, because remember, what is the brain? The brain is the Simsum. It's the divine mind of the Holy One. So this white light descends the brain. We're talking about the most primordial acts of creation. And to speak very, very, very plainly, until Likutei was revealed, it was impossible to understand any of this. The greatest tikkunim that were made by the Chazal that did study these levels that were laid out are infinitely far from understanding the true matter of the situation. At least they're self-admittedly about this matter. It exits and covers of the brain, and it stamps the center column in the 7th. That is to say, the 7th spark of the 7 sparks. It creates a path to illuminate the lower brain, Zerayin Pin, which is called the lower brain, and all the candles below. Rabbi Shimon said, it is beautiful. May the Ancient of Days open his eyes over you when you need him. Because the Ancient of Days this is what's written. He is your God. He is your glory. Right? We are his people. This is all referring to the Ancient of Days. The Ancient of Days is called Ain. From Ain comes my help. Right? It says, I will rejoice above Hashem. It's going to explain why. We have learned that of white that is within white, the white includes all that is white. Because everything inside of the endless is ultimately merciful. Did the endless not birth all of evil? But does not all of evil have existence because of the endless itself? This is true mercy. He explains the first white shine ascends and descends downward to the three candles at the left side. That is to say, the first light, an example the ain, descends through the brain, an example the simsum, strikes the heart spark where the seven sparks come out, and illuminates Chesed, Gevur, and Tiferet, as you guys have been made known to in the Gate of the Kings. They glow and bathe in this white, as someone who bathes his body in good perfumes. That is to say, because when the white light descended, which is to say the letter man, which is the secret of Yirah, which is the secret of Mashiach, when that man who was the straight light, who took on the form of the supernal form, entered in through the mind, illuminating the limit of the height and the limit of the depth, it was like a man who was anointed with great perfumes, pleasant fragrances, because it illuminated Chesed, Gevur, and what? Tiferet. And Tiferet is what? Yaakov smelled like a field blessed by Hashem. And because the illumination of Tiferet, they're giving this likeness to this fragrance. As someone who bathes his body with good perfumes and pleasant fragrances to clean what he went through before. Because what he went through before was when the sparks had emerged and died. The second white descends and ascends and illuminates the three candles to the right side. That is to say, the lower triad, Chesed, Gevur, and Tiferet. This is going to be Abba, Ima, and Zarinpin, for those of you that are familiar with the sparks arrangements. They glow and bathe in the white of the right eye as one bathes himself in fine perfumes and fragrances to clean what he was through before, meaning the sparks are beginning to be corrected. The third white illuminates, rises, and descends, and through it, white light illuminates the innermost part of the brain and beats on the black hair of Zarinpin as needed, because Yisod of the Atik is Zarinpin. And we're now talking about the Nukva, which is Malkut of the sparks. And so, also on the head of the brain and the head of Zarinpin, it illuminates the remaining three spheros, which are Chokmah, Bina, and Das. Until now, nothing is revealed except for Chesed, Gevur, Tiferet, Netzachot, and Yisod, which were the sparks that were just described in the prior passages. They became revealed as revelation is necessary if the concealed Atik wishes to have it revealed. This is one of the reasons why Malchus has inside of it all 5 Partsufim, but the upper Partsufim do not contain all 5 Partsufim. They do not contain all 5 Partsufims because as every level of it was constructed, it was only constructed according to its level. And the fullness of the lights could not enter in until the level of Malkuth, where it has all of the lights. So we have learned that this eye of a Rikaim pin is not closed, and they are 2 eyes reconstituted into one. So this is to say the ancient Atik, which are 2 eyes constituted as one. Leaf you take the eye in the secret of 130 or 26 times 5. And 2 times. So when describing the level of the Nikud, which is the level of the Simsum, all of it is by the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. And Yud-Kei Vav-Kei is a value of 26. So 26 times 10 is 260. This is 130 times 2. That's ayin twice. 2 eyes. So it's talking about, this is a small hint to that. Talking about the level of the Nikud. All of it is right, meaning all of it is Chokmah. Because the Simsum is all Chokmah. And it contains no left because Chokmah is to the right. Since it does not slumber or sleep, because the upper eye does not slumber or sleep, and it requires no guarding, because the ancient, none can overcome it, obviously. It keeps everyone else safe and watches over all from the watchful guardianship of the eye. Everyone is maintained. We have learned that if that one eye is closed even for a split second, no existence would be possible. Because it is existence. And because existence itself takes place within inside of that supernal eye, which is to say the Ein Sof, and Ein Sof Or. Therefore, it is called an open eye, a supernal eye, a holy eye, an ever-attentive eye, because everything is inside of that eye. An eye that does not slumber or sleep, an eye that is vigilant of everything, an eye that is the preservation of everything in existence. About this eye it is written, he that has a generous eye shall be blessed. Do not read it shall be blessed, but rather shall bless, because all blessings come from that supernal eye. Since that is considered one of the goodly eye, from it everyone gets blessed. That means everyone in general. It doesn't just say Israel. It means the life, the blessing of everything. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, woe if I reveal, woe if I don't. Woe if I reveal, because the evildoers will know how to serve their God. We have learned that there is no light to this lower eye of Zarinpin to wash away the redness and blackness. There is no light to this lower eye of Zarinpin. Zarinpin is 100% evil. It's about to explain the wickedness of Zarinpin. Okay, Zerampin is not to be confused with this upper eye, and this is the great penalty of not studying the Torah carefully, because fools, and what is a fool? Tepesh. Tepesh is a seruf of the word pishat. The letters of pishat, fe, shin, tet. Rearrange those as tet, fe, shin, tepesh. It means a fool, because fools have voided the Torah by not scrutinizing it as the work of God, but have made worldly use of the crown, as if it talked about mundane things like animal sacrifices, voiding all those supernal holy things. They now serve the Sita Achra, because they are in truth worshippers of Zerampin, which is going to be explained in just a second. Except when it sees the white light of the upper eye of a Rikain pin, which is referred to as one goodly eye. No one knows when this upper holy eye illuminates and bathes the lower eye for Zerampin except for it. This is what I say. Lift up your eyes and see Mibra Ele. When I say lift up your eyes, people think I'm talking about lift up your forms and see who created these. But in reality, I'm talking to the heavens. Give ear, O heaven, and give ear, O earth. Listen to the words of my mouth. I'm not actually talking to the individual, although the individual may assume that when I say lift up your eyes and see who created these, that I'm talking about them lifting their internal eyes to see the creator. But in reality, I'm talking about the force that rules this world, the minister of this reality. I'm telling the minister of this reality to look up and bathe in the supernal whiteness of that endless, which is the ruler and king and mainstayer and reason of existence for everything. The righteous and the most meritorious will see in the future, we're talking about the messianic future, this eye with a spirit of wisdom. And the spirit of wisdom is the secret of Yirah. Yaris Hashem Reishis Hokmah, right? That is the spirit of wisdom. Yirah is the secret of the supernal Yod. The supernal Yod is the light of Yechida and Chaya. This is exactly what he'll reveal, is the supernal eye. Because now you see the supernal eye, because I asked you a question. Is everything revolving at the highest level? 100 billion galaxies are revolving at the highest level. Is everything revolving at the lowest level? Trillions of atoms. There are more atoms in your body than there are stars in the sky. And that many electrons are revolving protons and neutrons inside of your body. Think about this. At the highest, and just your body alone. The highest level and lowest level, everything's revolving. Everything in between this and that is linear. Is sound not circular and conal? Is light not circular and conal? This is all that supernal eye. All of the wisdom of Likute is about that supernal eye. Everything in there is about that supernal eye. It at these levels, when we're in this level, it's hard not to get emotional about it. When we're at these levels, it's terrifying when you really go back to put things in perspective. Not from the perspective of the human being in the garbage dump, when you're going down there and you see them covered in dung, and you see them covered in dirt, and you see them covered in trash, because they keep garbage on themselves, which is exactly what Chetkal calls this place, right? Those who are scarlet heap garbage on themselves. When the light is brought down to go to the trash dweller and bring the trash dweller out of the garbage heap, the trash dweller doesn't understand what they're actually being exposed to. But when the trash dweller goes to the level of what the root of the light they're being exposed to actually is, it's terrifying. Because what type of authority submits 100 billion galaxies? That it should cause every one of those galaxies to revolve in perfect rotation, and they all to be revolving in circular aspects and concentric circles. And this isn't just an Elo separation from Shin. I mean, Elo separation from Shin is every angel, every demon, and everything else. Elo separation from Shin is even higher. It's the crown jewel. It's terrifying. Yet people would be afraid of people who poop and pee themselves and lay down like a corpse every night, whose destiny is maggots and worms, and yet they are not afraid before the Almighty. The only thing they should fear, the only thing they should worship, the only thing they should have reverence of. And yet they treat that thing like trash and place all material and self-indulging nothingness before it. Think about how terrible that is. And this thing, which is the root of all things, the universe, could not even exist for a moment. We have learned in the hidden book that everything is illuminated from the ever attentive, watchful of the lower eye. When the light of above is attentive to it, and the light of above enters the lower eye of Zerampin, this is what is written, that you, Hashem, are seen eye to eye. It's that you, Hashem, are seen to eye. It's telling Hashem. This is a direct link. The language is telling Zerampin to be eye to eye. The minister of this reality to be eye to eye. It is written, behold, the eye of Hashem is upon those who fear him. And it's also written, the eyes of Hashem, they rove to and fro throughout the earth. Meaning, if they merit, the eye of Hashem is upon those who fear him. That is the upper eye. If they have no merit, the eyes of Hashem, they rove to and fro. That is the lower eye of Zerampin. So you have two, it's one or the other. This is, the Zohar is very clear in its dichotomy. These are two different entities and two different things. One of them are the lower seven eyes, and the upper one is the singular eye. You're either under the watchful eye of the Atik, or you're under the auspices of the seven eyes of Zerampin. There's no gray area. You're either under the minister of this reality, which is like a person who's under a prince who represents a king, or you're under the king. If you're under the king, then you're not necessarily under the prince. But if you're not under the king, or refuse to acknowledge the king, regardless of which, you will be under the prince. We have learned that the reason Joseph merited that no evil eye would have any dominion over him, because he gained merit to be watched by the upper good eye. This is what is written, Joseph was a fruitful bow dwelling by a well. Meaning, why was he a fruitful bow? Because no evil eye was dominating him because of a well. Meaning the word well here is the word ayin, meaning an eye singular. Meaning, that is to say, due to the eye, the high eye that was watchful over him. It is written, he that has a generous eye shall be blessed. What is the reason? For he gives his bread to the poor. He further inquires, what is the reason that is referred to as one eye? It did not say, he that has generous eyes shall be blessed. He responds, come and see the lower eye of Zerampin, there exists a right eye and a left eye. Talking about Zerampin, meaning right and left, meaning tov vera, meaning good and evil. They are two in two specific senses, and the right being chasadim, the illumination of Chokmah. However, here in a Rikain pin, there exists no left eye. Meaning the highest eye of the Atik, there's no left eye because everything is in the aspect of the right, meaning everything is mercy. Both are considered in one level because the entire eye, Ein Sof, Or, are considered to be one thing. The meaning of white within white, as it was explained, that creates that eye. Therefore, it is written as one eye, generous eye shall be blessed, and not two. Not two, because now the Zohar is beginning to drive us away from this understanding of Zerampin. We have learned that this eye, the ever-attentive eye, is always open, always smiling, always happy. 57. Because the eye of the Atik, look how many wicked evildoers have come to the eye of the Atik and experienced joy. And to what bad thing has happened to any person who has come to see that eye? And to what truth has caused those people to suffer? None. But it has only been the blessing of every person who comes to the secret of its light. It has only brought goodness to every person who has come to the secret of that light. Though none are worthy of it, it has only been mercy. However, that is not the case down below in Zerampin, that are combined red, black, and white in three colors, meaning it's divided. They are not continuously open, since it has eyelids over the eyes that cover the eye. Therefore, it is written, awake, why sleep you, Hashem? This is explosive. You have to understand that the world has been led astray. The fools, the scholar demons that did not study the Torah of Moshe when he received, what did he receive on the mountain? The answer is the Kabbalah. Because the word received, kabel, is the word Kabbalah. It means that's what he received. He received the highest light. The highest light gave a true understanding about the nature of this reality. But the fool who interpreted and peshat, who is tepesh, who renders void his Torah, which it is written, they have made void your Torah, from which it is written, your enemies have become the chiefs, meaning the Ravs, meaning the rabbis. They have become the very enemy of God, the very enemy of the Shekhinah. Just like the other portion that we talked about last night, where it says, that the Mishnah is the reason why Moshe is in burial outside. Because they would rather eat from a tree of bitterness and death than receive the illumination of the light. They would rather be a slave to Zerampin and worship the lower foolish thing and corrupt themselves and destroy the world, feasting on their own people like a snake that eats itself, than to behold the sod of the matter, which is what it requires. Therefore, open your eyes and Hashem, open Hashem your eyes and see. This is why I said, oh, it's written, God is not a man. El is not a man that he should change his mind. What's written? Hashem is a man of war. It's written, Hashem relented of his evil. And the fool will tell you that Hashem and the endless are the same thing. And they're not. They are not. This is why Joseph Chikatilo says in his Gates of Lights, he warns, and he says specifically exactly what I said. He said, and they will think that they are one and the same, and they will not behold how many levels, how many husks are in between one and the other, meaning they're divided two different entities. Now the sod becomes the peshat, because the peshat is the sod. But if the peshat is interpreted without the sod, then the simple meanings get rendered and void everything of the higher nature. Because now the question is Yud-K Vav-K with us or Ain? Okay, the answer is Ain. But now the question is Hashem with us or not? And now it's just 100% Zerampin by default, because you've rendered it as a question. Now it only deals with Zerampin. Ain isn't even in the picture. When they foolishly quote, I am Yud-K Vav-K, and there is no God beside me. Well, the answer is, go look in the verse. It says Ain is beside him. Absolutely, Ain is beside him. Now what's going on? If you render it in the Peshat, look how far astray you go. That you're an idol worshiper. You're literally worshiping a created thing. When you worship Yud-K Vav-K, you are worshiping Zerampin. You're worshiping some inferior thing that sleeps. A man that changes its mind. A great evil, wicked thing. It's terrifying. I can't even begin to understand the scope of the idolatry. This is why Israel was engaged in idolatry. Why did the prophets rebuke Israel so harshly to say they were idol worshippers? How could you say that Israel are idol worshippers? Wasn't Israel the one that brought forth monotheism, the belief in one God? How could you possibly say they're idol worshippers? Why would the prophets say you're idol worshipper? This is why. Because you're worshiping a created thing. Because in your foolishness, because you've let go of the Torah of Har Sinai, and in ignorance have sinned, by rendering Peshat, which made you a tepesh, which made you a fool, and now you've fallen into the most erroneous and greatest of all errors. When the eyes of Zerampin are opened, there were some upon whom the eyes were opened for good, and some whom upon the eyes did not open for good. Woe to the one to whom the eyes of judgment open, and the eye is blended with red, that is the color of judgment. This red appears before him and covers the eye. Who could be saved from it? Because Zerampin, listen to the language of Zerampin. Listen to this wrathful, destructive nature. Does this sound like something that's merciful and an eye that blesses and an eye that is the existence of all things? Or does this look like the opposite of that? What's the opposite of a loving God? A God that hates. What's the opposite of a God that is perfect in mind? A God that changes its mind. What is the opposite of a God that gives life? A God that destroys. And so in truth, what they think is holiness is really the exact opposite of holiness. Meaning to say that whoever has no merit, the left illuminates upon him without the right the secret of the meaning of the red color. During time, harsh judgments are drawn from it. However, the Ancient of Days has a good eye. That is white within white, and a white containing all whites. Praiseworthy is the lot of the person who has one of the whites watchful over him. So here the Zohar is rebuking it again. And you wonder why these Erev Rav people tell you not to study the Zohar. They tell you, don't study Zohar. You go crazy. You got to be 40. Where does it say in the Torah you got to be 40 years old to study the Torah? It doesn't say anywhere. Well, you should be a fool like Rebbe Akiva until you're 40 years old and learn your Aleph Beis. Most people don't even live to see 40. They're basically giving you a death sentence. Now, keep in mind, when a lot of people think that I'm against the Mishnah and against the Talmud, no, I'm not against the Mishnah and the Talmud. I'm against the Mishnah and the Talmud when it's rendered foolishly in the Peshat, meaning that if you think that the sages came here to talk about stupidity and simpleton things, then you've made void everything. You've voided out the entire upper world. If you think Rashi was just stated, oh yeah, because every womb of every Jewish woman had 6 babies inside of it, and you think that's literal, instead of understanding that that's the aspect of Zerampin, exactly. Then you literally you display yourself as a fool. That's exactly what's going on here. So it's not that I'm against the Mishnah or the Talmud, but I'm against the Mishnah and the Talmud when it's rendered only under literal, materialistic interpretations that void the secrets of God. That I am staunchly against. But as anyone has been here, and as all of you here, and you that are on the call aren't here in person, but as for those that are here in person, you can see the Talmud, and you can see the Mishnah, and you can see everything else. We study it every day. So, about this it is written most certainly, he that has a generous eye shall be blessed. It is written, O house of Yaakov, come and let us continue to walk in the light of Hashem, meaning let's walk under the supervision of the light of Hashem. So in the light of Hashem, let us walk in the light of Hashem. Look at the fool. The fool's going to say, oh, let us walk in the light of Yud Kei Vav Kei. No. The Zohar is saying the light that illumines Yud Kei Vav Kei. Don't walk in Yud Kei Vav Kei. My rejoicing doesn't come. I don't rejoice in Yud Kei Vav Kei, Zohar says. It says, al, above Yud Kei Vav Kei, and the light that is the illumination of Zerampin. But do you see how the Peshat turns you into everything backwards? Everything becomes wicked, right? Yeah, you become a complete idol worshiper. You give all of the praise of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu. You give all the praise of the true illimitable one to a created thing. We have learned that the name of Atik is the most concealed of all concealed, and is not mentioned openly in the Torah except for one place, that Zerampin swore to Abraham. I've already told you. What is every Yud Kei Vav Kei is Zerampin. It's not mentioned anywhere directly in the Torah, only secretly, where it says, as it is written, by myself have I sworn, says Hashem. That is the speech of Zerampin. By myself I swore to Abraham. By myself. Zerampin is telling Abraham, by myself. He's referring to the Atik. You have to see what's going on here. What is this language? How incredible this is. By you shall Israel bless, meaning Israel of above. If so, by you shall Israel bless is addressed to the Atik. By you, not by Yud Kei Vav Kei, by the Atik. Because we don't worship Zerampin. Zerampin is a created thing. The fools worship Zerampin. That's the real Erev Rav. The Erev Rav, those are the people worshiping the equivalency of Samech men. It is also written, Israel in whom I shall be glorified. He said this to Israel, and we learn that the Ancient of Days said this to Zerampin. The Ancient of Days said this to Zerampin. Incredible. We have learned that it is written, as I looked, thrones were placed, and an Ancient of Days did sit. He asked, what is the meaning of the thrones that were placed? He told Rabbi Yehuda, rise in your place and prepare this throne. Rabbi Yehuda said, it is written, his throne were fiery flames. A throne is a reduction in stature. Because when the man went from standing, meaning when the Or Yashar descended in between the Simsum, it entered into the throne, which is Bina, the hard spark. And it sat and reduced itself into 7, which is likened to a chair, which is likened to a king that sits on a throne. This is what it means, his throne were fiery flames, meaning he sits on the sparks, he reduces his stature into the 7 sparks. And the Ancient of Days did sit upon his throne. What is the reason that he sat on the fiery throne? We have learned that if Atik Yomin would not have been sitting on this throne, the world would have no possibility of existence because of this throne. meaning that if the Atik did not sit, if the light of the endless did not sit upon those sparks to bring them correction, the world could not exist. Another explanation: if the light of the Atik did not restrict itself, the world cannot exist, because he would have just simply nullified it by the great glory of its light. When Atik Yomin sits on it, the throne is subdued, and whoever rides on it reigns. Meaning, what are the seven sparks? Arikain Pin, Abba, Ima, Zarin Pin, Nukva. When the Atik sits on that throne, Arikain Pin, Abba, Ima, Zarin Pin, and Nukva become completely subdued. They become completely subdued. But when the Ancient of Days is not sitting on that throne, which means a person does not connect themselves to the highest illimitable one, but instead they divorce themselves from the connection to the highest endless light, now all those parts two themes in between the Atik and us have control and rule. And when they have control and rule and reign, you're going to have every problem under the sun. During the periods that he leaves this throne and sits on another throne, the first throne gets discarded, since dominion is only on the throne in which the Atik Yomin rides. That is to say, and when the Ancient of Days, when the throne of the Ancient of Days, when he has to get off of the throne of fiery sparks, because he's not subduing Arikain Pin, Abba, Ima, Zarin Pin, Nukva, then he gets up off that spark, off that throne, and then that throne becomes a throne for discarded, which means it's no longer subdued, which means it's like voiding out life, and then the klipot, or the sita akra, the other side, rules in its place. And then those things which become empowered and enlivened by the underlying illimitable are given rulership, and they give power to rule. And they're really given power to rule because of the sins of the people by not acknowledging the true king. And when we fail to acknowledge the true king, but give his glory and authority and power over to another place, that thing becomes ruler over you. And when that thing becomes ruler over you, all types of evil, wickedness, and suffering come into the world. This is why when Mashiach comes, he wipes out the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude. Because the Orev is the raven. His hair is black like a raven. They're all Zarim Pin worshippers. Who's Erev Rav? The word Erev is like the word Orev. It's the word, his hair is black like a raven. It refers to Zarim Pin. They're all Zarim Pin worshippers. Who are the Erev Rav? They are those worshippers of Zarim Pin, instead of the most ancient Atik. And also the fools that think they can just touch into light with the illimitable. I've heard all these charlatans that say these things like, oh, I just connect with the light of the endless. Everything is the endless. No, that's okay. Even if what you're saying is true, this is what's written. All the nations are as nothing before me. Why? Because they do not conceive the higher or lower degrees. That means they do not understand the higher things or the lower things, but they make void everything. When you just say everything is the illimitable and everything's that, you don't actually know that. It's only the idea of that. You have an idea that everything is the illimitable. You don't actually know that. And because you don't actually know that, you are replacing the reality of knowing everything is the underlying illimitable with the idea of everything being the underlying illimitable, and that makes you an idol worshiper. And that's just as futile as the other foolishness that comes about from worshiping the lower parts. The only way to truly know that is to know the letters. He wrapped himself in light. When you know that the letters are the root and main cause of existence, and when you behold that with your own eyes, then you know for a fact that the underlying cause of existence is the illimitable. But if you don't behold with your eyes the letters, and you do not see the reality, you do not take what is a witness and a likeness to the Holy One, then you are not actually connecting to the illimitable. You're only connecting to your own idea of the illimitable. And when you connect to the idea of the illimitable as opposed to the reality of the illimitable, then you're idol worshiping. It's the same thing as worshiping the snake daddy. It's the serpent that convinces you that it's God, because now it's your idea that's become God in its place. So that brings us here to the ending section of the opening of the eyes. Behold very carefully the things that were revealed here today. And so for those of you that are here, we'll have another private class afterwards, after this call. But for those of you that are on the call, this was a small glimpse. I give private teachings to the inner circle, very privileged information behind the scenes. And I don't usually teach these levels openly because it's far beyond the capacity of most. I can't teach it on YouTube because people don't have the prerequisites. and most of the people that are in the groups are still learning themselves. But the people that are here in person that are learning this material, they have been studying this material for many years now and have the qualifications to know these levels. Therefore, it should be given to them. But with that, all of that being said, we're going to go ahead and conclude. For you guys that are on the call, for everyone that's not on the call, and shalom and salam.